Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of Ranking the Albums. We got a special show here for you today. And in the co-captain's chair, it was actually his idea to do this one, and I happily agreed to it. Mr. Armando Venditti from up in the great white north of Canada. What's going on, Armando?
Doing good, Pete. How are you doing?
Good doing all right. Doing all right. Couple days of really warm weather here in New York, 50 plus degrees, almost everything melted. And then I wake up this morning, it's 25 degrees and we got 3 inches of snow on the ground. So, you know, that's the way it plays out in the Northeast here in the US of A. Never know. Never know.
Yeah, well, here in the West, it's you never know. Like one day it'll be nice and sunny like it is today, but within an hour it could be snowing.
Yep.
So it's like, take it as it comes, right?
That's right. It's all you can do. It's all you can do. So we've got an interesting show for everybody here today. So this is an artist that is probably would not be considered your typical SOT fare. But occasionally we do cover some artists that we really like that are more in the kind of pop vein or what have you, right? And I would say the guy named Prince sort of falls into this category, although not. I think Prince is one of the great musical chameleons alongside guys like David Bowie and what have you, who kind of never really stayed in one musical place for too long. Sure, he's done pop, he's done psychedelic music and psychedelic pop, he's done R&B and hip hop, a little bit of rap, some jazz fusion, lots of funk, synth pop, disco, hard rock. We can go on and on and on. This guy has covered everything in his long career. Of course, we lost him a number of years ago, but interestingly enough, the guy has 42 studio albums to his credit. And his first album, you forget sometimes, I guess, his first album was released in 1978.
Yeah.
I think we all have, at least me, in the back of my mind, that Prince was always like a creation of the 80s. And no, he was going at it way before.
No, he had been recording from like 76 with other bands in the Minneapolis area. A band most notably that was called 94 East. I think he was like 16 years old at the time. And a guy by the name of Pepe Willie found him, like had a recording studio, and he started recording with this guy, Pepe Willie. And Pepe Willie realized that Prince, this kid named Prince, he was born Prince Rogers Nelson on June 7th, 1958. And this guy named Pepe Willie, who realized that this kid Prince was really talented. He could play, he's a one-man band. He could do drums, keyboards, bass, guitar, whatever you needed, he would do it. If you weren't doing something that he liked, he's like, no, he would stop you during a recording. He's like, no, this is how you play it. This is the chord progression. This is the keyboard. He wanted perfection. So, I mean, when he did something,
he was a prodigy. We could label this guy.
He was a prodigy.
Yeah.
But he also pissed off a lot of people at the same time because.
Well, yeah.
At the same, so, I mean, but he was a one of a kind.
He was a mysterious guy too, and controversy and lots of fame followed him throughout his career. Sold a shit ton of albums, as Armando is going to talk about for some of these releases. And it's funny, we were talking before we started taping, he's got 42 studio albums. I thought I had like almost everything he's ever put out, and then I realized, wow, there's some that just kind of were released on the internet only, because he got into like a war with record labels and retail for a while. So he was just like, I'm just going to put my own stuff out. And this is Prince we're talking about.
Yeah. And didn't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry. He got into war with Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
Because I was watching a documentary last night on it. There's a documentary called Slave Trade on the internet. On YouTube. You can watch it. It's free. And 1991, he re-signed with Warner Brothers for $100 million because according to the people around him, he was obsessed with having that $100 million record deal, because Michael Jackson and Madonna at the time were signing $50 million and $60 million deals respectively. So he thought that Warner Brothers owed him more money. So he signed the deal, but this deal was predicated on the fact, that each of his next 6 albums, because he was promised a $10 million advance on every album. this deal, $100 million deal, was predicated on the fact that every new album that he released had to sell 5 million at least in order to get that 10 million. Unfortunately, it didn't.
Yeah, I was just going to say, that was not a good deal for Warner Brothers, because I think Prince's best days sales-wise were in the 80s by far. So even though
it didn't, I mean,
really good albums in the 90s and the 2000s, the masses were not listening in droves like they were back in the 80s.
No, I mean, like you said before, I remember I was watching the show you did with Martin Popoff, and you had said that you had some of his catalog, but could you really say an album was good all the way through? Like, it was spotty at best. You know what I mean? Like, you had maybe 1 or 2 or 3 cuts that were good, but the rest of the album, not really, right? So
he's got and we'll get to it, but he's got in my mind one pretty perfect album, a couple that are really strong, and a ton that have some really good songs and a lot of filler. And that's no different than so many other artists. That's not. And
I find it really difficult to, if you can find sorry guys, by the way, I took a sip of coffee. That's why I went out of frame there for a second. People seem to think I pass out, when I'm about to fall out of the wheelchair. I'm not. But people, let me start again. It's very difficult to have an album from an artist and you like every single song on an album. I mean, with Queen, I love all of the songs, but that's an anomaly. And it's very difficult to find with an artist an album that you like every track all the way through. So, I mean, and that's just the way it is, right? Yeah. Doesn't mean the album is bad. It's just that some of this stuff isn't your taste.
Yeah, exactly. And I will say, as much as I have from this guy, there are albums that I own by him that I'm really not all that crazy about. I have them, but they're not really my cup of tea. Like for a while, they really got into this kind of like hip hop, rap, and dance stuff, which to me that's not my thing at all. When he's doing the funk stuff with bits of jazz and rock and that psychedelic pop thing, that's the Prince that I really dig quite a bit. So what we've done here, seeing as it is such an enormous catalog, Armando and I have each picked out our 10 favorites. So we've been painstakingly going through the catalog over the last couple of weeks and trying to come up with some kind of an order, some kind of a list. I've changed the order of my list around like 5 times already. So this morning I was like, all right, that's it. It's going to stay as is. I think I have my 10 favorites. I think I have them in the order that I like them. Could change tomorrow, but I'll have Armando kick us off with his number 10.
Well, thank you. Pete, you are so polite when you do these shows. You always let the guests go first. I love that. That is so polite of you.
Mama taught me well, Armando.
Oh, there you go. So did mine. Love you, Mama. Rest in peace, Mama. My number 10 is an album that was released in 2014, Artificial Age. This came out, like I said, on September of 2014. He had just re-signed with Warner Brothers, and part of the deal was that he would release 2 albums simultaneously, and they would give him back his masters. He would have retained ownership of his master recordings. And he released 2 albums that year. One was Plectrum Electrum with the girl band he was working with, Third Eye Girl, which was more of a rock, very much a rock album. But it was more of a group project on that album. Artificial Age is more of an R&B funk album. The standout tracks are The Breakdown, Clouds, which was a single. My personal favorite track is one called Way Back Home. Is it the reason why it's number 10? Like we were just saying, well, is it his best? It's a kind of a return to form, but it's not what it is. Spotty, I have to tell you. The tracks that I mentioned, Breakdown, Clouds, and Way Back Home, are probably one of the 3 best out of 13 tracks or 12 tracks on the album. And that's And in terms of, because we were talking chart positions, in the US, it was a hit number 5. And on the Canadian charts, it hit number 21. So, yeah, we had to do this list, and it has to fall somewhere. So that's my number 10.
I mean, yeah, but when you think about it, number 10 out of 42, that's pretty damn good, right?
Yeah, no, it was a return to form in certain in a certain level, but it wasn't his best album overall, in my opinion.
My number 10, this was a pretty big album. I think this was I think the first one that did some pretty decent charting position for him. 1981's Controversy. Probably rank higher for some people. I like it. I mean, it's lots of funk on here, pop, synth pop, a little bit of new wave on here. It's 81, so all that stuff is all the rage. One thing I always liked about him is he had a lot of long tracks on a lot of his albums. I mean, he did like the 2 and 3 minute pop songs, but he often would have these 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 minute long songs on all of his albums. And this one, the title track, which kicks it off, is got plenty of groove. It's also like 6, 7 minutes long, something like that. You got Sexuality on here, which is big and upbeat and frantic. Do Me Baby is classic Prince style pop and R&B. I mean, such a great song. Yeah, right. Let's Work is good and funky. You got Jack You Off is a fun song. It's got some really scorching guitar. I mean, this guy, let me just say it right now. Let's start off right at the beginning. This guy was a serious guitar player. This guy could have been a heavy rock guitar player if he wanted to. I mean, his skills were just absolutely amazing on guitar, but this is not a guitar album. This is a very synth-driven album, and to me, it sounds a little dated today, but it's of its time. But it's a fun album. The songs are enjoyable, and I remember, I'll just start the story off right at the beginning. When I went to college in 1984, the girlfriend that I wound up dating for 5 years, that I met like my first semester at school, she was an enormous Prince and Madonna fan when I met her. So that's why to this day, I still kind of have a soft spot for Prince and Madonna music, because it brings back good memories of my childhood when I was 18 years old and all that kind of stuff. So she's the one who got me into Prince back in the day. So yeah. But Controversy, 1981.
More on that later.
There you go.
That tour, he actually opened for the Stones.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that.
A little footnote. Yeah. He opened for the Stones, and just not to go off, but it did not go down well. He was booed off the stage. You have the Stones, this major rock band, all these hits, and you have a certain fan base, and out comes Prince in the trench coat and the, boots up to his knees, and he's got like the bikini briefs and and he's like gyrating around the stage, and people they booed him off.
It's a weird fit. I'm sure he gained a lot of fans regardless, but it is a weird fit. I mean, it was a weird, and the audiences every night, but yeah, it was a weird fit. Anyway, the funny thing is, just a couple of years later, he's outselling the Stones by a lot, right? But, at that point,
I love the Stones, but I think a lot of bands at that point were outselling the Stones. I mean, at that point, I'm sorry, that's another topic for another show.
Yeah.
Sorry, and my number 9 is Parade from 1986. It was doubled as a soundtrack for the movie Under the Cherry Moon. And in my opinion, if you've seen the movie, it should have just stayed as an album. And what I liked about the album was it was somewhat diverse, in that it had some different type of music, like shorter tracks. The standout tracks for me were one was called Venus de Milo, which was like an instrumental piece, orchestral instrumental piece. Very, very beautiful piece that ended off side 1 of the album. Another track that stood out for me was Mountains. He had other hits like Kiss, which is not my favorite track at all. He really didn't like it, so he was never really satisfied with Kiss as a finished product. That's why whenever he did it live, he did it in a different form. Like he never really liked the finished product. Another track that stood out for me was called Mountains from the album, which was a single. Chart positions in the US, it hit number 3, which is really good. Canada was number 11 on the RPM chart. In the UK, it hit number 4. So from a hit point of view, he was still going, like he still had the Midas touch, as it were. Yeah, no, I like the album. It's just he was starting to divert a little bit, wanting to spread out and experiment a little bit with what he was doing.
Yeah, he never stayed in one place for too long.
No. And I mean, it's got to be said too, because just very quickly, I've had these discussions before with people, and someone, he's usually compared to Michael Jackson as a performer. And I tell them, wait a second, like, back the truck up here. Like, no disrespect to Michael Jackson, but he is not, they are nowhere in the same ballpark. To me, Prince is a musician through and through, whereas Michael Jackson is an entertainer, a performer. So there's no comparison here,
Yeah,
but
they're both great at what they do, both legendary, but yeah, very different from each other.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true. I mean, again, no disrespect to Michael Jackson, but to me, there's no comparison between the two of them. And number 9, the Parade for me.
My number 9 is from 1995. The Gold Experience. Massive funk album. Not a kind of hits album, right? This is a time where he was kind of struggling to find that like mainstream audience again. But the funny thing is, I mean, there's some pretty accessible stuff on here. But again, you gotta like that kind of heavy funk thing that he was doing, which I kind of dig. And I like the fact that this album has taken a lot of chances, which is really cool. Endorphin Machine is a great hard rocker. You got that song Shh, which is big and funky. Killer vocals, great guitar solo, right? Great stuff. We March is another real funky one, catchy. Dolphin is a nice pop song like that. So I threw a lot of the things that we, would expect from him on here. You got 319 is another big raucous upbeat funk track, and then you got Billy Jack Bitch is another like hard rocker with a bit of funk, and then you got the closing track, which is called Gold, which has great melodies. Really, really nice song. I like this album because it's so diverse. I mean, you mentioned that before. At this point in time, he's giving you these albums that are different than the one that came before. And even on the album, it's like there's a lot of different variety and different styles of music, which is good. And for some people, that was not good, right? Because sometimes you can be too diverse for the mainstream, right? Yeah, I think that's what he struggled with, but it's what he wanted to do. So you got to give him credit for sticking to his guns, even unfortunately, I'm sure Warner Brothers weren't happy with the sales of some of these albums. But for people who are into the artistic stuff that he was doing, they're pretty rewarding albums, I think.
Yeah. More on that later. But to steal line from you, Pete, from you, boss. There'll be more on that later. But he did run into problems with Warner Brothers in terms of the releasing, because he would record an album every 6 months.
Yeah.
And want to release it. And Warner Brothers would say, you have to calm down. We can't, you can't keep doing this. Like, you need to give a bit of a break. And he's like, why?
I want to work, right? Well, yeah. I mean, Warner Brothers is coming at it like, people are not going to keep cashing, putting out the money, right? It's like you got your fans, but even your most diehard fans are not going to buy a new album from you every 4 to 6 months. And, it starts costing a lot of money, right? But,
and the problem is comes the question too, and we'll get back on the list, but the question is too, are the songs as good as you think they are?
Right. Yeah, that's absolutely true.
Do you know what I mean? It all comes back to the music.
Yep.
So, but I digress. Okay, number 8 for me is Emancipation.
The big one. Yep.
1996, released November 19th, 1996. And Pete goes off camera to possibly get a copy of. Oh, there you go. I love the props. I love it. All my props are downstairs in the basement, so I got to bungee cord myself to get down there and get back up. So, at this point, it was released, as I said, November 19th, 1996. It was part of a one-off deal, distribution deal with EMI. He had left Warner Brothers at this point. It was a joint venture between NPG and EMI as a distribution. Triple album, 36 tracks, 180 minutes exact.
A lot of material.
A lot of material. Oh my God.
Not a lot of triple albums in the history of music, right? And it's like,
yeah, and he's released 2 triple albums. One was a compilation called Crystal Ball, and this one, and he's released, I think he's one of the only artists I think that's released 3 double albums in his career. But for Emancipation, he does 4 cover versions on the album. One of them being La 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 Means I Love You, Betcha by Golly Wow, which was the lead off single, and the Joan Osborne track, One of Us. The very diverse album, a lot of music on there. Could it have been condensed to maybe like a 15-track single album? Yeah. I mean, on this album, you have funk, you have jazz, you have rock, you have house music, which disc 3, track 3 is called The Human Body, which, released 1989, 1990, that would have just went through the roof in terms of music charts, right? And the clubs. I like it. It had to go somewhere on the list, so it's like number 8 for me. Do I listen to it now? No, not as much as I used to back when I first bought it. And I'm a Prince fan. Whenever there was a new release, I'd be like calling people, there's a new album coming out. And they're like, who the fuck cares? I mean, they wouldn't, it's like, it's Prince. I'm like, whatever. I mean, really, it's like, I would be the only one that was excited about it. So yeah, but it hasn't, it's an album of its time.
Yeah.
And he wouldn't perform a lot of this stuff on tour when you would tour. So I don't know. And in terms of the chart positions in the UK, it was number 18, and in the US it was number 11. And overall, he was making all the money from the sale of the album. He was promoting it, getting it out there. So it sold about 450,000 copies overall.
That's a lot for a triple album.
Yeah. So yeah, no, it's a good album, but it's low on the list for me. It's number 8.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't make my list, but it's a bit unwieldy for me. It's so massive, and there's a lot of filler on it. There's a lot of great stuff on it too, but it's just I haven't listened to it in ages, and I have to really be in the mood to put that one on. It's just so much. To me, a triple album is almost like that's a little too much, right? A double album is one thing, triple album, oh my God. But,
no, it's true. It's very expensive. Like, when I first heard it, like, oh, a triple album, like, oh, great music, it's going to be fantastic. It's going to be Prince at his, best. And it's like,
well, there is some Prince at his best on there. Unfortunately,
no, it is.
Prince it is not so best, right?
But consistently. Sorry, it's got to be, to me, it's got to be consistent, and it hasn't really stood the test of time for me. So
yeah, I hear you. My number 8 from 2004, his 28th album. Jesus, Musicology.
Recorded in Toronto.
Yeah, I like this album. Again, a lot of funk on this album. I like his funk stuff. Title track is great, real catchy. Illusion, Coma, Pimp, and Circumstance is really funky. Really, I love 2 great tracks to kick off this album. You got the kind of like a throwback song for him, A Million Days, which reminds me a lot of his mid-'80s era. And it's got some nice guitar firepower going through there too. Cinnamon Girl is a great pop song.
Yeah.
To me, sometimes I think his best stuff is his more kind of like that. I always call it psychedelic pop. It's so good, even though he's great at doing the funk stuff. You got the jazzy R&B of On the Couch, which I think kind of foreshadowed some stuff he was going to do a little later on. I mean, it's a really diverse album. It's not that long of an album, a little bit of everything on here, and it's got interesting packaging too. Kind of opens up like this. You got booklet. So pretty cool stuff. But I like this album. It's a pretty solid album. So Musicology, my number 8.
Good album. It was actually recorded at Metalworks in Mississauga, Ontario. That's owned by Gilmore from Triumph. And that was when he was living in Toronto. And the good album. Cinnamon Girl is a fantastic track. My number 7 is one that I actually bought when it came out, and the only Prince album I actually returned to Tower Records. Like, I could not get into it. I was like, what is this shit? Really, I could not get into it. But I rebought it, and it was the impetus for this show. The Rainbow Children from 2001. Thank you, Pete. I have mine and I have my copy. But yeah, good album. Very underrated album. It's referred to as the Jehovah album, the Jehovah Witnesses album. It's pure jazz, like how Prince does it, kind of thing. The title track is 10-minute plus of just beautiful jazz music, and he does a little guitar piece at the end, just about the 7-minute mark, that he does some guitar work that sounds like Carlos Santana to me. He's very, I gotta tell you, I should tell you, he was very influenced by Carlos Santana. He loved Santana.
I think Carlos and Jimi Hendrix were his 2 main influences, if I'm not
mistaken. And Sly and the Family Stone. Right. I have my notes here. There's a few other tracks. There's an instrumental called The Central Ever After, which is beautiful. The Work Part 1, which was released as the only single from the album. Another track further into the album called She Loves Me for Me, which is beautiful. Again, it confused a lot of people. People either liked the album or they just couldn't stand it. It only got up to 109 on the US chart. So, I mean, it really did not do as well as he wanted to. It was released independently also, but in conjunction with the EMI again. These distribution deals that he had going, he called them agreements. He didn't call them record deals. He called them agreements. He hated the word contract because he felt like it bounded him into doing something. And yeah, it's just a very expansive, there's like 14 tracks on the album, 15 if you include there's a reprieve on the last December on the last track, which is like 38 seconds. But it's a fantastic piece of work. It's underrated, as you put it, vastly underrated. I would agree. I found a brand new appreciation for the album. And yeah, that's my number 7.
More on that later.
That's going to be the theme of this show. More on that later, guys. Yeah. We should get that on a t-shirt.
No, more about that later, right? Yeah,
more on that later.
In fact, it's my appreciation for albums like that forced this one down quite a bit on my list, which this one I'm sure is going to be pretty high for you and a lot of people watching, and that's okay. I do like it a lot. It's in my top 10. I just like some of his other stuff that's a little weirder, I think more. 1999 from 1982. His 5th album overall, first with The Revolution, double album, right? 4 times platinum here in the States. Title track is absolute classic Prince. You got funk, you got synth pop and R&B, you got the totally charming Little Red Corvette, the quirky pop of Delirium, the synth heavy funk of DMSR, you got the 10-minute adventurous automatic track, which has some great vocals on it. You got Free, which is nice and emotional and kind of bluesy. Lady Cab Driver is funky with some shred guitar on it. I mean, it's a really good album. A lot of long songs again. like not your typical, this is not, the song lengths on this album are not typical of what you would see on stuff like this. It is a very synth heavy album though. It's very, it's 1982, so it's not surprising. But I think vocally, Prince is really coming into his own on this album. We're talking about the big period here. This is really the controversy started it. I think this is the album that really got him going on his way, and there was kind of no looking back from there. So it had to be on my list. This was actually much higher. When I first sat down, I said, all right, off the top of my head, how's this list going to play out? And then I picked the 10 albums that I know are my favorites. And then I had this up way higher. And then I went and re-listened to everything, and I'm like, you know what? I still do really like this album, but I don't like it as much as some of these other ones. So, but I know a lot of people, this is one of his best ever. So, and that's cool, but not quite for me. But that's okay. It's still great. Back to you.
A little footnote on that album: in South America, in those territories, it was released as 2 separate albums.
Ah, okay.
So it was released as 1999 Part 1 and 1999 Part 2.
Interesting.
And yeah, I mean, more on that later on my list. I'm gonna bloody get a t-shirt like that made. I'm telling you. My number 6 is Welcome to America.
Okay.
And it is the first and only posthumous album of his, of totally new material, like all new, never been released. This is a damn good album. Bloody hell. It came out July 30th, 2021. And it was recorded in 2010. Everything was done, brand new band, and he just shelved it. He just shelved it. He didn't think, I guess he thought it wasn't going to sell. It was going to sell. It was going to go at least top 30, at least, or even top 20. How can I put this? It's a scathing commentary on life, pop culture, society as a whole. The title track has him just, you have the backup singers singing the choruses, but he does like a spoken word over on the verses, and it's just scathing for me. There's that track. There's a track called Summertime, which is like a feel good, sitting in the car, you got the top down or the windows down, it's like a summer night on a Friday or Saturday. You're just driving downtown. You've got the music going in. You're just enjoying it. You're just enjoying the night, right? One of the singles was Born to Die, which is another good sultry, I called it like a sultry R&B piece. Another track called Yes, which is further along in the album. It's just a really, really solid piece of work. He didn't release it. Instead, he released an internet album, or in the UK, it was, he did another album called 2010. And it was released in the UK along with newspaper subscriptions. If you got a subscription, one coffee, guys, and I'm screwed up, sorry. I need more coffee, guys. But it was released along with newspaper releases, like, you get your morning paper and it would be in the paper, which pissed off a lot of people too. You couldn't make heads or tails of that one album. He opted to release that instead. It didn't sell. And I really don't know why he didn't release Welcome to America. It was going to move. It was really going to move. In the US, when it was released in the US, it was, it charted at number 4. So in Canada, it was 21. And in the UK, it was number 5 on the UK charts. By the way,
I wonder if there are
all
any
the
more of those
information-
type of albums in the can that have never been released. I'm sure he's got plenty of stuff in the vaults they're
Yeah.
going to milk
Yeah.
out at some point.
By the way, a little footnote: all the information I've given today is available on Wikipedia.com. Again, so it's all courtesy of Wikipedia. Don't shoot the messenger here if I'm wrong. Okay. But yeah, I don't know why he didn't release it, because it is such a good album. And you could tell, I could tell, at least maybe I'm wrong, but he was having fun. He was enjoying it. He was enjoying writing this stuff. He was enjoying recording this stuff. There's another track on there called Check the Record, which is just like funk personified. It was just like, you need to take a shower after hearing that song, because it's so, like, it's so good that it affects you so much, right? But yeah, that's my number. And it had to fall somewhere, and I'm surprised it fell so high on the chart. On my chart, number 6.
It's a good thing. Yeah, it's a good thing.
Number 6. Yeah.
Well, my number 6 might be surprising to some, because a lot of people didn't like this album, but me being, a real rock fan, hard rock fan,
Yeah.
I was attracted to this album immediately. 1996's Chaos and Disorder. This is
okay.
This is his hard rock album. This is the heaviest album he ever did. There's lots of guitar on this album. It's just raw and ferocious in spots, but this is not like the Prince that everybody wanted to hear, unfortunately. But I was like, whoa, this is great, right? Title track has got fuzz guitar riffs, big drums, lots of organ. I like it there. Rocks hard. Dinner with Dolores is just kind of real quirky. You got The Same December, which is rocking, but it's kind of catchy. You got the light jazz pop of Right the Wrong, which that's more like a traditional Prince song. But then you got like what is it? Santa Lee is incredible. It's got these screaming wah-wah guitar licks all over. It's just real funky, real hard rock. You have I Rock, Therefore I Am, which is a great song. It's kind of like weird for me to like that song, because it's got a lot of hip hop elements to it, but it's got a lot of hard rock riffs going too. So I kind of like that. Into the Light is a really good, catchy pop song, and Dig You Better Dead is really catchy. It's really funky. I don't know. This is a weird, raucous, raw album. If you read up on the history of this album, apparently this was right in the middle of his being pissed off at the record label, and he just threw this album together really, really quickly. And he did not like this album too much, but I think it's pretty damn good. So that's my number 6.
Yeah, that album came out. It's funny, they were talking about this on that documentary last night. Every time he would release a new album, like Emancipation came out on November 19th. That album, Chaos and Disorder, came out from Warner Brothers around the same time. So it was almost like when he would release a new album, they would try and sort of take the attention away, according to the documentary. Guys, don't get pissed off at me. This is not my interpretation of it. But that they would Warner Brothers would try and take the attention away by releasing something of his that was, like from the vaults, right? The bone of contention was from Warner Brothers, we want new product. Give us new product that we can sell. And Prince turned around, I've got over 100 albums worth of material, whatever, like that's in there, that's in the vault. Go take it. This will fulfill my contract to you. Just go take it. You have permission. And they're like, no, we want something new. So
they want a hit album. They want an album with single.
They want. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. They wanted substance. They wanted something tangible that they could promote, and let's be honest, that they could sell, right? And this Chaos and Disorder was his basically fuck you album to say enough, we're done, I got to move on. And it'll say that this album originally intended for private use, serves as the final product to be recorded by the Symbol, to be released by Warner Brothers Records. I'm paraphrasing, but that was like a disclaimer at the bottom of the CD jacket. And I like it. And do I listen to it? No.
They should have marketed it to like the rock audience, is what they should have.
Yeah, they should have.
That's not an album for fans of like all the others, the more pop and funk and hip hop and R&B stuff. I mean, that's totally, not that at all. But for folks, I mean, because for someone like me who always dug this guy, but I always wanted to hear him rock more because I know he's got it in him. That album's a revelation, but he didn't do a lot of stuff like that ever. So
no, and he looked at it as a throwaway, like this.
Yeah, that's I get. It kind of sounds like and he just got a bunch of folks together and they just cranked out a bunch of songs. Like it's like a garage rock album, with some odd Prince isms all over it. But I don't know.
I mean, don't take this as gospel, but I think that, or quote me on it, but I think that Xanderly was a track that he recorded an album called The Undertaker that was never released. I've heard it online. And he does covers of Honky Tonk Woman on there. And I mean, he wanted to release that. That was like an overnight jam session with him and 2 other players. And he wanted to release that. And Warner Brothers said no.
No, yeah.
So I think that this is like a whole, that one track, Xanderly, I think it's a holdover from those sessions. But yeah, moving on. My number 5 is going to surprise people that it's so low on the list. Top to bottom, a fantastic album. Maybe the reason why it's on the low on the list is because it's overplayed or over promoted. Purple Rain.
Wow.
Yeah. I bought the album when it came out on vinyl. I have the 2017, I believe it is, the reissue, the 4 CD reissue of the bonus tracks and stuff. Fantastic album, US #1, Canada #1 album. Every song on that album is good for me. Fantastic. A little footnote, the original version of Purple Rain was supposed to be written with Stevie Nicks. He was a big fan of female artists. He loved Stevie Nicks.
I could see that.
He loved Christine McVie. And he actually, and the original version itself was 11 minutes long. He did a benefit show at First Avenue Club in August of '83, and he did the album, most of the album, and he performed Purple Rain for the first time. And if you can find it on YouTube, the original version of Purple Rain, there's a verse, like a third verse that's in there that he omitted for the final product. That live recording at First Avenue is what you hear on Purple Rain on the soundtrack, right? And obviously the strings were added in later. Yeah. What can you say about Purple Rain? I mean, in terms of the music itself, and in terms of the longevity of the album, and in terms of what it's meant on pop culture, it's his most accessible album. I mean, tracks like Darling Nicking notwithstanding, we won't go into that controversy, but I mean, it's just a fantastic album. Do I go to that album? I do, but I usually go for the reissue with the bonus CDs and stuff to listen to it. I just think it's been overplayed to a certain extent. So, and there are other albums that I go to first.
Yeah, that's what it's all about, right?
Yeah, but again, there's no taking away from the significance of that album, So
cool.
But yeah, that's my number 5.
All right. I think we'll be hearing a little bit more about Purple Rain before we finish up shop today.
Really?
my number 5
okay,
is from right around the same time period, 1987, Sign of the Times, or Sign o' the Times. 9th album, another double album. Title track is absolute classic Prince, with its mix of like psychedelic pop and funk, jazz, R&B, and rock. I mean, that's his sweet spot, right? Great song. Bright, upbeat, Play in the Sunshine. You got Housequake is pretty decent. Starfish and Coffee is just a charming song. Love that.
Yeah, I love that track too.
You got the catchy pop funk of You Got the Look. If I Was Your Girlfriend, another great R&B track from him. I Could Never Take the Place of Your Man is just a great pop track, great hook on that one. Classic Prince, great guitar solo. You got the song The Cross, which is just this moody, heavy rock piece, right? I guess kind of, it's great song. You got the real long, kind of like avant-garde pop, hip hop type of, and I wouldn't even call it hip hop really. It's got that R&B, pop, avant-garde music. It's going to be a beautiful night. Another great song. Really daring album. I mean, there's a lot of material on here. I think this one works more for me anyway than Emancipation, because I think even though this is a lengthy album, I think this is a little more reined in than Emancipation is. But again, this is a time period where Prince really could kind of do no wrong. Pretty adventurous album. Yeah, I dig it. Sign of the Times. Big seller for him
too. More on that later, ladies and gentlemen.
Yep.
Fantastic album.
Yeah. Oh
yeah. My number 4 is The Gold Experience. Released September 26, 1995 on, thank you for the prop. He is so courteous with this kind of stuff, guys, I'm telling you. It was released in conjunction with NPG and Warner Brothers Records. Again, September 26, 1995, I was pleasantly surprised. I didn't even know this was coming out. I saw it in the record store, I grabbed it and bought it. There's a bit of a history with this album. This album was ready as early as 1993. There were tracks that he recorded a number of songs he wanted to give 2 albums to Warner Brothers to release. One of them was Come from 93. And a majority of the songs that were recorded for the album Come ended up on The Gold Experience. So he gives them the album and they don't release it until like a year and a half later, because they finally realized he ain't giving us new product. We got to make some money on the stuff we already paid out. So it's fantastic. The album itself, as Pete said, it's to me, it's funk personified. It's rocking, it's funk, it's R&B, it's political, it's not, it's sexual, it's not. The lead off track, Peak Control, which we won't go into, but all I can say about that album is, about that track is, it's about women empowering themselves. You know, we won't go into it because people know, if you're a Prince fan, you know what that track is talking about. Hello. And you go into the rocking endorphin machine, and then it goes into the 7-minute 29-second ode to sex, high school sex, and it goes into tracks like, it has tracks like We March, with which was a duet with Nona Gay, Marvin Gaye's daughter. Tracks like Dolphin, which is a fantastic pop track. 319, like you said, there's also Billy Jack Bitch, which has backup vocals from Lenny Kravitz on there. And the final track is Gold. And it's quite prophetic, that one track, because he's basically saying what you think is going to make you happy isn't really going to make you happy. The lyric, all that glitters ain't gold, which the older I get, I'll be 52 this year. It's true. Like what you think you want, and when you get it, there has to be something more to what you're doing.
And I think what we know about Prince's life now, it's those guys who all this superstardom really doesn't always do it, right? It's like,
exactly.
Be careful what you wish for, right? So.
And it reached number 6 on the US chart. The leadoff track is called I Hate You, which is another relationship song.
Yep.
But I mean, and the album is interlaced with, you know, the NPG operator talking about, okay, we're going into this experience, we're going into that experience, like all through the album. So it's sort of interconnected, right? The album, the only thing the album suffers from is lack of promotion, because a lot of people did not know this album came out. And they released Gold was a single. It was a shorted single, but it was like 7 minutes long on the album. It's like a 3 minute, 4 minute edited version as a single, but it's just a fantastic piece of music. And I'm surprised that it didn't sell as well as it did. I thought this was a more cohesive, put together album. Like it was just seamless to me. I don't understand it. So, I mean, but you know what? Maybe at the time, you know, there was a criticism of Prince at the time. There was oversaturation in the market of too many albums.
That's an issue. I mean, it absolutely is.
Yeah, but I mean, his argument was, well, if James Brown back in the day could release an album every 6 months, or Aretha Franklin could release an album,
why can't I? Right? Yeah.
Every like 9 months, why can't I do it? Right.
Yeah.
But
the buying public has changed a lot since then. That's the problem.
Yeah. I think you and I are one of the few people that really like to sit down with an album with the lyric sheet and look through and take the album as we've talked about this before. I'm not going to go into, you know, semantics and stuff, but the whole deal, but to sit and absorb the album as a whole piece of music, you know, not just like sound bites of a track here and there, or, you know, but it's a fantastic piece of work. Yep. And it should have gotten more attention than what it had.
I agree. All right, my number 4 from 1985. Around the World in a Day. Lovely album.
That was on my list. I took it off.
Really? I like this a lot. I remember when this first came out, you know, my ex-girlfriend at the time, of course, bought this when it came out, and I looked at it, I'm like, oh, what is that? That's trying to be his like Sgt. Pepper album, you know? But ironically, I mean, this is kind of like, this is his like psychedelic pop and funk album. It's a which is pretty ballsy that he put an album like this after the huge success of Purple Rain, because this is, I don't think, what people really expected from him, but it's a really good album. I mean, it's his 7th album overall. The title track is so infectious. Paisley Park is just such a catchy little slice of, you know, pop. Raspberry Beret,
psychedelia.
Just love Raspberry Beret. It's such a great song. You got the frantic funk rock of America. You got Pop Life, which is just a really, really great song. The Ladder is kind of jazzy. You got Temptation, which is just screaming guitar rock. I mean, I just think this is a wonderful little album. It's not that long. Everything on it is pretty strong, and you got a lot of variety on here, but it's just a quirky, fun album from him. And I think, you know, people were like, well, we want Purple Rain too, but this still sold pretty well. And like I said, a couple of the singles did pretty well, but it's a very different album from Purple Rain. But that's what I always liked so much about this guy. He was always kind of changing things up a little bit. So yeah, Around the World in a Day from 85 is my number 4.
I gotta tell you, that was going to be my number 6 on my, you know, but I thought, and I was listening to him like, okay, the guy, I love it. Like it's eclectic, and that like Around the World in a Day, the title track is like got that Middle Eastern influence, like you know, the stars and stuff. And this album, when it came out, he had recorded the album already back in '84 while he was on tour for Purple Rain, and he just wanted to go a different way. He didn't want any singles released from the album. He didn't want to do it that way. He just wanted the album to come out and let it speak for itself. But you have to promote in order for people to know what's going on, right?
You have to get played on the radio back then. That's what it was all about, right? So
exactly. And I think Warner Brothers had to twist his arm to even do the video for Raspberry Beret. It's like, I don't want to, like, that's not what this is about. And they're like, well, you want to make music, you want to sell, you know. But yeah, it's a good album. It's a very, it's I don't, like I say, it's a one-off, but it's a very eclectic album for me. My number 3 is Dirty Mind.
Wow. Okay.
Released.
Talk. I'll grab it. Keep talking.
Sorry. Hello, guys. The rest of the show will be taken over. No, I'm kidding. It was released October of 1980. Yes, there it is. Thank you for the props. Yeah.
Another ballsy album cover, I think.
Oh
Right?
my God, yes. It's a very short album and only just clocks in just under 30 minutes.
Yeah.
You have the title track. It's eight tracks. You have the title track. You have, which is a fantastic little, I call it Synth Disco. Right. And that was the group at that point. Andre Simone was still in the band.
Yep.
And he did everything on his own. He rented a house in Minnesota and he got himself a 16-track recording machine and just did everything himself with like Lisa Coleman, who played keyboard. She did backup vocals, and I think Matt Fink, Dr. Fink as he was called, did that little on Dirty Mind, that little keyboard part. That's his. They were doing that during a jam session, so Prince picked up on that and just wrote the song around that synth part. Just a really good album. The album, I mean, again, only 8 songs. Very, the album was supposed to be a demo. The songs were supposed to be like a demo versions of songs that he submitted to the record company. And then he thought, when he heard them, there's that song, there's, now my mind's going blank. There's Got a Broken Heart Again, Do It All Night, songs like that. And the second side starts with Uptown. It all segues. There's Uptown, Head, Sister, and Party Up on side 2. And they all segue together. The playing on the album is very sparse. Not a lot of instrumentation. Drum machine, of course, but also very new wave stuff that's on there. And originally he was going to re-record it, but he thought, you know what? I like the demos. I like what I hear. And he gave the album to the record company, and Warner Brothers is like, are you kidding me? Like, we can't do this. This is not going to sell. This is too risque. You need to clean this up. There's songs about incest and stuff like that, like very taboo subject at the time. And I remember he played the album for his father, John Nelson, who was a jazz piano player. And his father said, "You swear on the album. Why?" And Prince's response was, "Because I swear. That's just who I am." It's, so it was released. And I think at that point he'd just come off tour with Rick James. And they didn't get along at all on the tour.
What a surprise.
They hated each other because Rick James, from what I've read, I read his biography a couple of years back, that Rick James thought that Prince stole his style from him. To me, there's no comparison between the two of them. I'm sorry. But it reached number 45 in the US. And it's one of the albums I go back to. Like when I want to hear Prince, like early Prince, that's one of the ones I go back to usually, just to get myself in a good mood. Like, Uptown is a real funky piece of music. Head itself, is just a good R&B swagger funk track. The title and the subject matter notwithstanding, Sister is about, it segues into Party Up, but Sister is just like a minute, 38-second rockabilly kind of a thing, right? And Party Up originally was, apparently, if you believe the sources, was written by Morris Day from the time, a group that he was working with, that he was like a protege band. And according to sources, Morris Day wrote the song. Prince said, I'll give you 10 grand I'll give you either 10 grand for the song, or I'll get your record contract with Warner Brothers. So but Prince, it said that Prince wrote the song, but sources have come out that that wasn't the case. But it's just a really good, fun album for me to listen to. I think it's fantastic myself.
There you go. Number three.
So yeah, that's my number three.
All right. My number three, we're going to revisit the Rainbow Children. One. Yeah. I like this album a lot. I remember when this came out, people were just kind of like, what the hell is this?
Yeah, I was like, one of them.
Give me more of this. Kind of cool concept album, laid back and jazzy. You know why I like this album so much? I've been to New Orleans a couple times, and I really like New Orleans. This reminds me of something you would hear a band play in like a smoky little like blues or jazz club in New Orleans. Like you're just sitting back and you're sipping your little, psychedelic drink or whatever, because they sell all these weird drinks in New Orleans, like all these like bright, green drinks and hurricanes and grenades and all this kind of nonsense. But you're just sitting back, maybe you got a bowl of gumbo in front of you, and there's a band playing stuff like this. I mean, this is just, I love the vibe of this album. It's got plenty of horns on it, electric piano. You got a bit of traditional vocals like we would expect from Prince, with a lot of spoken word stuff. There's lots of nice guitar work on here, jazzy stuff, bluesy stuff. I like the production too. I'm not really a headphones guy, but when you listen to this album on headphones, there's a lot of panning back and forth, left to right going on this album. It's really kind of a really good listening experience album. The Digital Garden is great. Title track is awesome. The Work Part 1 is really good jazzy funk track. Like I said, there's tasty guitar work throughout the whole thing. I love 1+1+1 is 3. Family Name is a great track. The Everlasting Now is kind of what you expect from Prince. That's like the outlier on this album. It's more like a traditional Prince song. But Last December is lush and got all these great guitar solos. I don't know. I think it's one of his more adventurous albums. It's not commercial at all, but that's what I like about it. This is Prince saying, you know what? I know it's not going to sell millions of copies. I don't care. This is the album I want to do. Take it or leave it. And I'll take it. I think this is great. And I love the packaging. It's just the artwork and all that kind of stuff is just really, really cool. It's definitely something different from it. So yeah, that's my number three. I had it a little higher, dropped down just a little bit because of the one I'm going to talk about next. But your number two, what do you got?
My number two is Controversy from 1981.
There you go. Back to this one.
Yep. What can be said about Controversy? A lot. I mean, it's the album he recorded, I believe, after he toured with the Stones, or he was recording it during his time touring with the Stones, the Ill-Fated tour. And it's just, I mean, the title track, look, there are 2 tracks on there that are like 7 minutes long plus, which is Controversy and Do Me Baby. And when I first bought it, I only would listen to the first side. I bought it when I was like 14, and knew it then and liked it then, but I really couldn't get into side 2. Once I started listening to songs like Private Joy and Ronnie Talk to Russia and Let's Work and Any Christian, I just thought it was just an amazing album. He did it all himself, with the exception of Lisa Coleman on vocals, on some vocals, and Matt Fink doing some of the instrumentation on keyboards. I just think it's a fantastic piece of R&B and funk. And in the US, it reached number 20, according to my notes, Wikipedia, folks. It reached number 21 on the US chart. You could see now where he was going.
Oh yeah.
With regards to what was going to come next.
Yeah.
But I think in some cases it's a very underrated album. It's a very underrated album because the songs like Any Christian and Ronnie Talk to Russia, which is, like talking about Ronald Reagan and, like talking to Russia, or who's going to, are we going to war kind of a thing? Is the US going to war with Russia? So, and topics that really wasn't talked about in music. I don't think really in the mainstream anyway. I mean, you had political bands, independent bands that would talk about it in the clubs and stuff, but nothing that was really released in North America that in terms of in an R&B format, right? So yeah, it's just a great album, and yeah, it's number 2 on my list.
Cool. All right, my number 2. This is 27th album overall, released in 2003. News. And again, another maybe a strange choice for some, but this is the album I always wanted to hear from him. All instrumental. It's basically a full-on instrumental jazz album. It's a new age on here as well, but it's 4 long, lengthy tracks, north, east, west, and south. That's what they're called. Each track is like 14 or 15 minutes long, so there's a lot of music on here. It's about an hour long, and it's basically him on guitar, him playing Fender Rhodes and synthesizers. There's sax on here, bass and drums. That's it. And like I said, parts of it are atmospheric. Some of it's more upbeat jazz funk, a little bit of like that kind of like majestic kind of new wave stuff, or new age, I should say, not new wave. West might be my favorite track out of the 4 of them, which is just real sizzling, funky jazz fusion. So if you like kind of jazz rock, it's just classic sounding stuff. Great sax and guitar duets and stuff going on throughout the whole album. Some of it's really like atmospheric and kind of moody and just kind of floating along, but I always wanted to hear him doing something like this. Forget everything else. Let's just play our instruments and put out something. Because, he was a big jazz fan. He was a big blues fan, in addition to being the big funk fan that he was. So I think this is absolutely terrific album. And, we talked earlier about Carlos Santana, his love for Santana and Carlos's music. And this, you could say this is kind of like maybe his homage to the great Santana album Caravanserai, right? Because it's kind of got that similar type of vibe, although obviously much more updated because it's 2003. But yeah, he did a couple albums like this. I think he did 3 or 4 instrumental albums. By far, I think this is the best. But again, this sold nothing. Nobody bought this. And people were kind of like, I don't want to hear Prince do that. I wanted to hear Prince do that. So that's my number 2.
That fantastic album. I mean, I've heard it online before. That's the kind of album that you just want to put on and just listen to. And you just want to, you chill. You just go off into another frame of mind, and you just let it happen, right? You don't question anything, right? You just melt away into the music, which is what I say. The moment of truth here. Number 1, I cheated. I pulled a Pardo here. I did a tie.
I think I'm guessing what your tie is going to be.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, boss, go ahead. Show me. Bloody hell.
Am I correct?
Yeah.
There you go. Sign of the Times in 1999. I knew it.
What the hell, man? Oh my God. Okay. Let's tackle this now.
You know what, Armando, listened very well, and my mind's been working this whole time listening to you talk about some of my picks. And I'm like, I thought it was gonna be one of those 2 at the top. And then when you said you were gonna pick 2, I'm like, there we go. There we go.
Sorry, I guess I'm predictable, guys.
No, not at all. I'm a good listener. I listen to what you were saying, and I can tell you think very, very highly of those 2. So I'm like, all right, they're going to be up there for him. So yeah.
Okay, well, let's tackle this. 1999 came out in 1982, and 1999 was I had no idea of Dirty Mind, the controversy album, For You from 78, or the self-titled from 79. It came out in 1999. It was the first track I've ever heard from Prince. I didn't know who the hell this guy was. It's just party. It's just a party, feel good song. I mean, the song is talking about possible destruction. They're gonna drop the bomb, and what am I gonna do? I'm gonna dance my life away. But you cannot deny that hook, that keyboard melody, the intro, and even the intro on the title track, it starts off with a distorted voice, don't worry, I won't hurt you, I just want you to have some fun, and then it kicks into the track itself. I don't want to swear, but so I'm just like, motherfucker. It's just a feel good piece of music, and it segues into Little Red Corvette,
Yeah.
which, I mean, fantastic piece of music. The subject matter is serious more than when you listen to it. It's talking to his girlfriend to, like, slow down, like, you're offering me yourself, but you need to slow it down a little bit, and you're not going to like what's going to possibly happen if you let that happen. Then it segues into Delirious, which is like a rockabilly track, and the version on the album isn't even the full version of the track, right? So it's a double album. It was very ballsy to put out a fifth double album, and there's 11 songs. The first side has got 1999 Little Red Corvette, Delirious. Second side has Let's Pretend We're Married, and DMSR, which is a fantastic track. The second side starts off with Automatic, which is really good. There's actually a video for it that was never it was released in Australia as a single, but not here. And Let's Pretend We're Married was released as a limited single in the US, like a radio single that they called it, promo. There's 11 tracks. I counted at least 7 tracks that I go to. So 7 out of 11 songs on an album is pretty good in terms of consistency, right? There's what more can be said. And in terms of the US position, it topped at number 7 on the US chart. And when he did the tour, they called it the Triple Threat Tour. It was Vanity 6, The Time, and Prince. And it solidified him in terms of, like, Purple Rain was the mainstream album in terms of, popular music, pop and all that. But 1999, to me, solidified him in the R&B world, funk and R&B, right? And then when you get to Sign of the Times, 5 years later, what can be said? 16 tracks, fantastic album. The original album, he started recording the album, it came out in 87, started recording in 86. The original album was called Dream Factory, right? It was supposed to be a triple album. He recorded 22 tracks for that album. And Warner Brothers said, you are out of your mind if you think we're going to release a triple album, because Parade didn't do so great. They were comparing it to Purple Rain in terms of sales. Parade didn't do so great. Around the World didn't do so great. So you know what? You need to cut this down. And he balked at it, but he released it. He cut down 6 songs. The title track is one of the first songs that I've ever heard as a teenager, tackling AIDS as a topic. You've got that, you've got Play in the Sunshine, you've got Hot Thing, other songs like The Ballad of Dorothy Parker, Starfish and Coffee, Strange Relationship, which is an amazing piece of work, Forever in My Life. You got The Look, If I Was Your Girlfriend, which was, If I Was Your Girlfriend, if you listen to the vocals, it's a sped up vocal that he did. He did an album called Camille, which he used. It was like an alter ego that he had. So he just sped up the vocal to make it sound like a female singing. And he named her Camille. And it was going to come out as an album called Camille, but that was shelved too. There were 2 albums that were shelved. 3. One was called Crystal Ball, which turned into Sign of the Times. Another one that was called Dream Factory, and another one called Camille, all at the same time. So he was really prolific at this point in time. And The Cross is an amazing piece of work, starts off side 4, segues into It's Going to Be a Beautiful Night, which to me, it's a good song, but it's a good version, but I like the version from the movie Sign of the Times better. It's a sped up version. It's funky as all hell. You've got Sheila E. on drums, and in the middle of the song, they switch positions. So he jumps on the drums, and then she runs down and does the rap for the song. And it's just amazing, amazing. And it ends with Adore, the track Adore, which I really didn't give much attention to at the time, but I think it's one of his, it's a beautiful track. And guys, if you want to get the super deluxe reissue of the album, it's got like, I think it's like a 6-disc.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's just
right?
so much.
It's got like a 6-disc reissue. I've got it downstairs. I remember the day I bought it. I bought that one, and I bought the Pink Floyd later years set. So I'm walking home with 2 bags of, monster sets. I couldn't really carry them. I had to triple bag it because they would have fell through the bag, right? Because of the weight. The reissue of Sign of the Times has a concert of his from the Sign of the Times tour in Europe, in Germany. And there's a DVD of them performing, doing a concert at Paisley Park on New Year's Eve, 1987. So it's just an amazing album. And there is an unauthorized version of Dream Factory, which was the original version. It's the July 1986 configuration of Sign of the Times. But it was done with the Revolution, right? And he disbanded the Revolution in October of '86. But I've got this version of Dream Factory. I think I paid like $50 for it on Discogs. And guys, Pete, I gotta tell you, if you can find it, get it.
That good, huh?
Yeah. There's 19 tracks on it, and it's got more variety than what's on Sign of the Times. I mean, I love Sign of the Times, but this album, to me, and the title track of Sign of the Times is on that album. But the Dream Factory album is more cohesive in terms of, what was released. And I love this album, but I mean, what you want from an artist is variety, and what you get from him on the album is variety. So, but yeah, and again, in the US, it charted at number 6,
yep.
The album itself.
And actually, Sign of the Times was the last of his string of 6 platinum plus sellers in a row, starting with Controversy. So Controversy, 1999, Purple Rain obviously sold like 14 million or something like that. Around the World in a Day was 2, Parade and Sign of the Times were both 1 million. And then Love Sexy in 1998 only went gold. So he kind of slipped a little bit there. But,
his pinnacle, his peak to me was Sign of the Times, and because he also released an album called the Black Album, which they printed about 25,000 copies. They were in the middle of printing it, and he said, "Don't do it. We're going to do something else." 7 weeks later, he records Love Sexy, which at the time was an okay album, but when I listen back to it, like doing this list, I thought, yeah,
it's not great. It's okay.
No, it's not great.
Yeah, he didn't get back to multi-platinum again until Diamonds and Pearls in '91. That went double platinum, but all the other ones in between were gold. And I don't know if
but the problem is that he kept blaming the record companies.
Yeah.
Like he kept blaming the record companies, saying, "You're not promoting my stuff properly," And they're like, "Well, we're doing the best we can, but you're not giving us enough time to gear up a proper promotion campaign." And his response was, "Well, I do the music, I give it to you, that's your job."
Yeah. We talked earlier about oversaturation, right? So, I mean, I'll just run through this real quick. So starting with Purple Rain, we'll start at Purple Rain, 84. Around the World in a Day, 85, Parade 86, Sign of the Times 87, Love Sexy 88, Batman soundtrack 89, Graffiti Bridge 90, Diamonds and Pearls 91, Love Symbol albums 92, Come 94, Black Album 94, Gold Experience 95, Chaos and Disorder 96, Emancipation 96. I mean, you get the hint here, right? And it continues on from there. It's like every year you get one or more releases, and that would be his whole career would be like that. And he would get later on, he was just, when he said, screw it, I'm not dealing with record labels anymore. He was just releasing albums independently, left and right. It's like,
yeah. So, and I mean, he
crazy.
His thing was, why can't I do what I want to do? And it's like, you know what? You can do what you want to do, but it's not going to sell like
right. Don't expect the masses to buy every single album, right? Because I mean, granted,
yeah, exactly. I mean, like he did an album called Rave Unto the Joy Fantastic in '99, and it was released as a one-off deal with Arista, with Clive Davis's label. So he releases it. It's a good album. It's all right. It's not the best. I mean, one of the tracks that stands out for me was called So Far So Pleased with Gwen Stefani as a duet. And that was a really good pop rock song. She wouldn't release it. She didn't give permission to release it because she was coming out with an album with No Doubt. So she didn't want it to over compete, right? Or compete with each other. So, and then he blamed, like this is on the documentary, he blamed Clive Davis for not promoting the album properly. And it's like, I'm sorry, but it comes down to the music. If you're doing music that obviously you're going to think it's great because you're the writer, you're the creator, you did it. But if the sales aren't, if people don't think it's good, they're not going to buy it, in terms of that. So, I mean, a lot of artists have said that too, where, like they blame the record company for not promoting it and whatever. And it's like, you know what? Did you ever stop to think that maybe the record wasn't that good in the first place? You know what I mean? Like overall. So, but that's not to take away from his talent as an artist at all.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. So, all right. Well, cool. So you got a good double one for number one. I'm going to go with probably what is fairly expected here, but to me, this is a perfect album. Purple Rain, massive seller, tons of hit singles on it. Got him in the Revolution, the movie, which is kind of shitty, but did really well as well. But the music on here is just absolutely fantastic. I mean, Let's Go Crazy is a terrific album opener with great hooks, wild screaming guitar, pyrotechnics. I mean, I remember at the time I was a total metalhead, but even I was totally into this album. And I remember like I would sit and play air guitar to Let's Go Crazy all the time. And I was like, yeah, Take Me With You is great psychedelic pop. You got Computer Blue is such a great kind of funky hard rock song. I love that. Darling Nikki, as bizarre as that is, that's still a great track. I think it's got a lot of guitar on it. When Doves Cry, great pop song. I Would Die For You. I still remember when I saw the one time I went to see Prince at Madison Square Garden, when he sang that song, everybody did the I Would Die For You, the whole thing there, because that was such a big deal at the time. Baby I'm a Star is just a great synth pop track. And then the title track is legendary. It's just so epic, and it just shows off his skills as not only a singer, but it absolutely is a guitar player. So I mean, it's played out, and it's not one that I listen to often anymore because I just know it so well, but I just can't deny that this is his best album, and it's still my favorite album. Even if I listen to some of the other ones, when I do want to listen to Prince, I may reach for those more, but this is just a great album. It is. It's got to be number one for me. So there you have it. There you have it. Oh, so I might as well ask you before we go, did you ever get to see him live?
Yeah, November of 2012.
Oh, cool.
Here in Edmonton. It was oddly enough, it was called Welcome to Canada tour. Oh, okay. And a little footnote, we were there, and a friend of mine was there and with me, and Bob doesn't like Prince. Oh. Can't stand Prince, although he's got the Purple Rain cassette, but he can't stand Prince, right? And we saw the show, and the house lights go down about 3 times, because people think, oh, he was an hour, 45 minutes late starting. So the house lights go down 3 times. On the 3rd time, they go down, and then the house lights come back up, and I heard someone below me yell, "Son of a bitch!" Like when's this gonna start, kind of thing. but when he did, it was amazing. It was amazing, and he was enjoying it. He was having fun performing. You could tell he was into it.
Yeah, I mean, he puts on a great show. I only saw him the one time. My wife and I went. It might have been around that time. I'm going to think it was either. I don't know. He did like that big tour right in the late 2000s there. I don't remember exactly when it was, but it was in Madison Square Garden. It was a lot of fun, and you knew every song because he played. It was more like a greatest hits tour because he wasn't really playing like new stuff at the time. So it was great. One and only time. But yeah, what a performer, what a musician, and he's missed. But man, he's left a wealth of music.
Yeah, no, he has.
So as you can see, our lists were fairly different. We had a couple that we knew were going to be on each list, but otherwise you got a lot of different stuff here. So if you are a Prince fan, down in the comments below, please list your top 5, top 10, whatever you want to do. It'd be strange if anybody ranked the entire 42 album catalog, but you never know.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I'd be surprised if people knew the entire 42 album.
Yeah, because there's just so much released later on that it's just like, you can't keep up with it. I mean, I have a ton of his albums, but I don't have all of them. It's just there was just too many there for a while. So so there you have it, everybody. Thanks for watching this fun little show about Prince, and visit us on the web at www.seaoftranquility.org. We are on Facebook, we are on Twitter, of course, we're here on YouTube, all together
all the damn time,
right? So we'll be seeing Armando back again real soon, because we are planning a ranking show which will also include Martin Popoff and Rick Labonte as well, and that's going to be all about the Tea Party. So the only reason we haven't done it yet is because I still am waiting for my copy of the brand new Tea Party album. So once I get that, and I have like a week to listen to it, we're going to be delivering a top 10 or the top 10, ranking the albums of the Tea Party catalog. Which what did I talk about? 6 albums, 7 albums? I forget.
They have 6 albums, two EPs, and 6 albums.
So great Canadian band. So that's coming up in the weeks ahead, so stay tuned for that. For Armando Venditti, I am Pete Pardo. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, everybody, but stay tuned. We got another ranking show coming up in a little bit. Speaking of Rick Labonte, I got my other friend from Canada. He and I are getting together momentarily to rank the albums of Magic Pie, the great Norwegian heavy prog band. So stay tuned for a lot more. And so like I said, for Armando, I am Pete. See you in a bit. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.